Welcome to Monday Morning Moments. I'm Mike Van Hoozer. Today I wanted to talk to you about leadership and specifically one of the roles that we teach in our Invisible Hand of Leadership course that we teach to athletes and business leaders and all kinds of organizations. And the very first role that we teach as one of these leadership roles is the leader as lead learner. And the reason we call it that is we feel like teaching is an aspect of leadership, but also that the leader sets the example by learning and continuing to strive for lifelong learning and growth in their career. And we feel like if they're doing that from a personal growth standpoint, that'll set the tone for other people to continue to learn in their career and in their life as well. And so in that, I think there are three things that I want to share with you as lifelong learning, as the leader's lead learner that you can apply in your own life. And I think the first characteristic of a lifelong learner is somebody who's vulnerable. And that's somebody who's willing to say, I don't know, what do you think about that? And if you're leading a team or you're just in peer relationships, I think a lot of times we think we're expected to have a mastery of a subject or have all the answers. And sometimes it's important to be vulnerable and to ask, I don't know, what do you think about that? And it's important to gather information from additional sources to arrive at the best answer versus just trying to rely on the answer yourself. And the best leaders are vulnerable in that they have a perspective about things, but they also say, what do you think about that? They ask those questions and they gather information from a range of people and sources so that they arrive at the best answer. And that being vulnerable is a piece of lifelong learning. The second characteristic is being curious. And leaders who are curious are seeking to understand more. They have a wonder about how things work. And so they're seeking information from additional sources. They're reading and consuming additional information. And it's similar to being vulnerable, but they actually act on that vulnerability and they're curious and go deeper and have a depth of knowledge that they want to understand how things work and how a process works and to gather the right context. And they ask the right questions. And part of being curious and being a great leader is asking the right questions. I think, again, as a leader, we can focus on saying the right things and feeling like we have to have the answers, but asking the right questions and being curious about things and why would somebody think that and what caused this issue or what if we were able to do this and what kind of success would we have with that? Being curious can allow you to go deeper and understand information a little bit better. And again, to get to the right answer, as well as to grow and to have a depth of knowledge from that curiosity. And then the third thing is being committed. It's committed to lifelong learning. So being committed to a process of lifelong learning in your life. And I think that the key piece there is that great leaders who are committed to the process of lifelong learning continue to seek out information in that depth of knowledge even when they feel like they've arrived and even when they feel like they have a mastery of the material. An example in my own life is that early on, I had a passion for leadership, and I've always had that in my life. And as we teach leadership, I still have a quest to learn more about leadership. But early on, I consumed as many books as I could on leadership. I went to hear people talk about leadership. I gathered different insights from different people. Somebody once joked that they were working with me and they said, well, yeah, Mike reads books on leadership all the time, and maybe he'll get it at one point if he reads enough books. But I think that's important that as a leader, whatever that topic or subject matter that you're interested in, that you go deeper in that, even when you feel like you've arrived, and that you're committed to that process of continual growth and knowing that you can continue to grow even when you feel like you're an expert in whatever that might be. And so I wrote down some key questions that map out to being vulnerable, being curious, and being committed to lifelong learning. And I think the first question to ask yourself about vulnerability is, are you open to learning and growth? Are you open to learning and growth? Because if you're not, then you're not going to grow past your current knowledge and things are going to pass you up because you're not continually growing in your career, in your life. And I think it's important that openness, that's the key question to being vulnerable. Are we open to learning and growth? That's where it starts. It starts with our mindset. And then from a curiosity standpoint, the second question is, are you seeking the right sources of truth and knowledge? And that's really important. We can find a lot of information, whether we Google it or whether we seek out different books or different people around the knowledge that we're trying to gain. But it's important to seek the right sources of truth and the right sources of knowledge. And being curious, you can be curious about things, but as we have that directed curiosity, we need to make sure that we're on that path to seeking the right information and the right sources of truth and knowledge. And then the third thing, and the third question related to that, being committed to lifelong learning, is, are you willing to go further even when you think you've arrived? Are you willing to go further even when you think you've arrived? And great leaders don't just acclimate and say, well, others may need to go to training and learning, but I've arrived. I already am an expert in that. I think that when you have a growth mindset and you look at the best leaders and best peak performers in sports, business, or life, they continually grow. They continue to get better at their craft. And it's important that we, even when we think we've arrived and we've mastered the material or mastered the area that we're talking about, that we go further and we continue to grow and know that we can always get better in certain things that we're doing. So think about those things. Think about being vulnerable, being curious, and being committed to the process of lifelong learning as you think about your role as a leader and just in your own personal life. And remember this, great leaders set the tone of how important learning and growth is. And they don't just say it, they show it by demonstrating a process of lifelong learning in their own lives. I hope you have a great week. And as always, make the most of the moments in your life.